Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating, incredibly universal human habit. Have you ever looked around your home or your closet and just wondered why it's filled with things you barely even use? Well, we're going to explore the hidden biological and psychological forces that actually drive our modern consumer behavior. And look, this isn't about judging our choices or feeling guilty. It's about looking at the absolute genius of the science behind them. So, picture this. You've got a few minutes to kill, right? You pull out your phone, open a shopping app, or maybe you just wander into a store, telling yourself, I'm just going to browse. You don't actually need a single thing. But somehow, 10 minutes later, a brand new item is sitting right there in your cart. We have all been there. It is a highly familiar, everyday scenario that crosses literally all demographics. Okay, let's dive into this. How in the world do we make that 10-minute journey from innocent browsing to actively buying? Why does a completely unplanned purchase suddenly feel like an absolute necessity? Chapter 1. The Biology of Desire. To find the answer, we kind of have to look inside our own heads. When we buy unnecessary things, we usually just blame ourselves, right? We think it's a lack of willpower or poor self-control. But the truth is, this behavior is a perfectly normal consequence of human psychology. It's practically wired into us. And this brings us to a really interesting concept known as neuromarketing. Modern marketers aren't just guessing what we want anymore. They are astute students of the human brain. By using scientific measurements like EEGs and brain scans, they study our subconscious reactions. They figure out exactly what triggers our emotions before those feelings even have a chance to pass through our logical filters. They're designing marketing that works seamlessly with our brain's natural pathways rather than fighting against them. Let's break down the biological loop that kicks in when you shop. First, there's anticipation. The moment you see a product you want, your brain releases dopamine. Now, here's the real secret. Dopamine isn't actually just about pleasure. It's about the anticipation of a reward. You literally get a massive chemical rush simply from researching a product or just waiting for it to be delivered. This provides an instant rush of gratification, which very quickly solidifies into a habit. Without even realizing it, you're chasing a biological high. So, the absolutely crucial point here is that we are essentially of two minds when we shop. There's the fast, emotional brain that gets hit with that dopamine and immediately makes the decision to buy. Then there's the slow, logical brain. It shows up late to the party, sees the item in the cart, and scrambles to invent a practical, rational reason for the purchase. Emotion leads the way, and reason just tags along behind. Chapter 2. Buying Our Future Selves. If we're buying emotionally, what on earth are we actually trying to get when we hand over our credit cards? It's almost never just the physical object. We don't just buy a watch to tell time or clothes merely to keep warm. Instead, companies are selling these invisible identity-based concepts. They're selling status, comfort, hope, and confidence. As humans, we have this deep evolutionary need for belonging. So when you buy the absolute latest technology or a luxury brand, your brain truly believes you're buying access to a specific social group, or you're investing in this idealized future version of yourself. And this brilliantly illustrates something called the Diderot effect. Named after the French philosopher Denis Diderot, this effect describes how getting just one new possession creates this wild spiral of consumption. For example, say you buy a new car. Suddenly, your old phone charger just doesn't look right in it, so you buy a new charger, then maybe a fancy emergency kit, and then matching seat covers. You end up buying a whole cascade of things your previous self never even needed, all just to match the identity of that first initial purchase. Chapter 3. The Marketer's Playbook. Now, to be clear, we are absolutely not painting companies as villains here. They just happen to have an incredibly effective toolkit based on behavioral economics. And by understanding it ourselves, we can kind of level the playing field. Marketers use specific psychological triggers to prompt us to act. Think about scarcity, when you see only 2 left in stock flashing on a website, or limited time flash sales during Black Friday. Then there's social proof, like when Amazon helpfully points out that 20 other people are looking at this right now. Or the decoy effect, famously used in coffee shops, where a highly priced large coffee magically makes the medium one look like this incredibly logical bargain. And of course, anchoring, crossing out a $100 price tag to show $50, which makes your brain feel like you just scored a total steal. At the very heart of so many of these tactics are concepts like loss aversion and the endowment effect. Renowned psychologists like Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman have shown that we humans absolutely hate losing things. In fact, the psychological pain of missing out on a deal is actually much stronger than the satisfaction of actually getting the item. Apple product launches or exclusive subscription services leverage this FOMO perfectly. We buy because, quite simply, we're afraid to be left behind. Now, what's really staggering here is the sheer scale of this behavior. According to studies from the Journal of Consumer Research, a massive 65% of purchasing decisions are driven by the irrational fear we experience in the face of scarcity. Let that sink in. More than half the time, our wallet is being opened by the fear of missing out rather than any actual need. Chapter 4. The Stories We Tell. So, what happens after the dopamine fades and that package actually arrives on your doorstep? Welcome to the post-purchase phase. This is where our brain has to deal with the messy aftermath of buying things we know deep down we didn't really need. And this is where cognitive dissonance comes into play. When our actions, like spending money we probably shouldn't have, clash with our beliefs about being a responsible, sensible person, it creates a lot of mental discomfort. To soothe this buyer's remorse, we rationalize. We construct this highly attractive, completely untrue explanation. We tell ourselves, well, I bought this sweater because it was on sale, so technically, I actually saved money. We literally lie to ourselves just to keep the anxiety at bay. Chapter 5. Master Mindful Spending. Fortunately, we don't have to be at the mercy of our impulses forever. The whole goal here is to transfer this incredible psychological power right back to you, so you can actually enjoy everyday consumer life without all that lingering guilt. So here are 3 practical, evidence-based strategies to try. First, recognize the emotional trigger. Ask yourself, are you shopping right now because you're stressed or bored or anxious? Just catching the emotion can stop the automatic habit in its tracks. Second, try implementing a 24-hour waitlist. If you want something online, just leave it in the cart for a full day. You'll be amazed to find that the dopamine urge almost always fades. And third, instead of just asking, do I need this? Try asking yourself, what does this represent to me? Are you actually just buying a jacket, or are you trying to buy confidence? I want to leave you with this really powerful final thought to ponder. The most powerful marketing strategy isn't the advertisement you see. It's the story your brain tells itself after seeing it. So the very next time you find yourself innocently browsing an app, remember the incredible psychology at play behind the scenes. Ask yourself, is it really you making this purchase, or is it just your biology? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious and happy mindful spending.